Coming up next, it's the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. We're live here on Monday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. And I think it is with you, folks. DAMEON Nelson here, not from the PWR studios. We'll explain that later, but we are joined all over the United States by our great associates and this one dude who thinks he's a co-host, David Hero. And also Josh Chernoff from Philadelphia, Jason Solomon from Brooklyn, New York, Andrew Baydala from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the man they call Meathead from Appleton, Wisconsin. This is the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. Let's just stop talking and let's just start doing. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time live here on Monday, May 4, 2020. DAMEON Nelson coming to you here from New Jersey. I don't even know how this happened, what a week it's been, ladies and gentlemen, but it's great that we are here with you live on Fight TV and all over the world, and our associates all over the United States are joining us as well in an action-packed show to talk about here tonight. We are so happy to be live on Fight TV, FITE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and more. We're taking your comments live as they happen across all those same said platforms, and we want to hear what you think. So in addition to subscribing to us on YouTube and liking us on Facebook, which hundreds of you do each and every day, go ahead and interact with the show here live today. And even though the Lords have blessed me without having to sit next to them, I can virtually be next to my co-host, David Octavius, the Tiberius, the alleged backyard, one-time knockout, straight-edge, hardcore Hall of Famer hero. David, how are you from the PWR studios in Milwaukee?
I am fantastic, and I'm enjoying.
Oh, hey, put that away.
May 4th. How about that, right? See,
wait a minute. That is this. It's not that kind of show.
Well, I just wanted to prove that, hey, I'm celebrating. Even though I'm celebrating that you're not here, I'm celebrating it's May 4th. It's Monday night. We got some live pro wrestling coming up. It's going to be a solid week.
It is going to be a solid week, and it has been already, and it gets more and more solid. I'm not talking about that gimmick you just whipped out, but we are joined by our associates all over the United States.
That's how rumors start.
Well, hey, did you not have a gimmick, and did you not whip it out?
I turned it on.
As I think Meathead and Jason can appreciate here. There is a term for that, which is he took it out.
Meathead, you want to take that?
Nope, I did that a long time ago. That's why I'm married.
Seinfeld, when Elaine got set up by Jerry on the guy, and he took it out.
Yep. Yes.
Anyways. So, guys, thank you for joining us. Let's go around and figure out how things are in this pandemic world that we live in. Andrew Baydala, Minneapolis, you are turning into a Viking yourself. That beard gets longer and longer each and every week.
Just doing what I can. Quarantine beard.
I see the depth of your introduction hasn't gotten any worse either.
We're here to talk wrestling, not my beard, right?
Josh Chernoff, speaking of beards, it appears as if you have parted ways and wished your beard its best in its future endeavors.
Yeah, I watched myself on this show last week and looked like some sort of a vagrant and decided that it was time for me to clean up my act and put forth the best, most positive effort I possibly can for the Pro Wrestling Report.
You have recited that prepared statement that I sent you earlier today better than I thought you could. That was fantastic. Well done.
Thank you.
And also clean-shaven, the man they call Meathead. I would say as smooth as a baby's behind, but I've not touched a baby's behind in a very long time, so it's just a figure of speech.
Been a few years. It's been a few years since I've been on diaper duty. You hold the feet up here, you get underneath. I'm on team front to back.
What was that you just did? That was shocking.
The way you just explained that would get everybody in a lot of trouble.
Dave,
I love the team front to back.
Team front to back.
Yeah.
That's the team I'm on.
Put your
If
feet
you,
up
if you know,
here,
you know.
underneath.
The first 5 minutes of this show have been nothing but rumor and innuendo. Dave, Meathead, Josh, all three of you are in the penalty box for the next 14 seconds.
What did I do?
You were playing right along and helping them. Look, right now, I'm in New Jersey. I'm not going to say Trenton because I've already learned in my 24 hours here that you don't want to be from there. I am between Philadelphia and New York. I should be my image here should be between Josh and Jason because I didn't like these Midwestern dudes anymore. So I went to the East Coast, out in the Northeast.
So now
it's
you're
been
between
nice
a
out here.
rock and a hard place, if you will.
Well, which one's the rock? Which one's the hard place? I'll let Jason Solomon answer that since we have not yet introduced him.
Yeah, I got to say New York is the hard place. It's as if we're not dealing with enough. Now we have murder hornets who apparently are about to swarm us this summer. So, Damien, you're not too far away from the murder hornet's nest. You're neighbors with me now.
Murder hornets.
Murder hornets from Japan, apparently. I
Oh.
thought
Yeah,
Japan
it's
was the best.
Lance Archer, right?
Well, yeah, they followed him here, I guess. So you and I are going to have to combat this together, I guess, this summer.
So I guess the worst case scenario is you get one of these murder hornets stuck in your mask and it stings you somewhere in your maskal area, and then you're just done. You may as well just put a fork in them, as Gorilla Monsoon used to say, right?
Yeah, I think I might be headed out to the Midwest myself very soon.
I got to say, traveling across the country from Chicago area, Milwaukee area to New Jersey this past weekend, it was fascinating to see the difference in Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and then New Jersey as to how the different states were taking their interpretation of what they should be doing to abate this virus situation. And it's just fascinating to me that things are so vastly different, just borders apart.
I swore I'd never make that drive ever again.
You made it once?
I did. I drove from New York to Minnesota. Never, ever, ever again.
It was that last part between Milwaukee and La Crosse and Minneapolis that did it to you, right?
Yeah, it was a long drive.
Well,
a long
folks,
drive
this is
with
about
nothing.
professional wrestling, and we do want to bring you all the latest in professional wrestling tonight. In fact, we're going to be talking about another WWE star who was released last week and why there may be a bit of a curse associated with that release. What is next for Becky Lynch? Might she, too, take the same road that many have tried to travel, but few have done so successfully? And also, which recently released WWE star said that he may indeed be quitting wrestling? Another injury strikes the SmackDown brand, and we're going to preview this weekend's WWE Money in the Bank ladder matches all night long. So, with that, let's get right down to it and talk about our top story. And David, this one will be near and dear to your heart because you are I guess you'd say sort of the anti-fan. And when I say that, it's not an insult. It's because you are the one.
Look how you frame it. You're already framing it that way.
I was explaining it as well. You are the one who realizes that there is more outside of wrestling that many times wrestling stars may pursue. Hulk Hogan did it. Roddy Piper did it. The Rock obviously did it and became the highest paid actor in Hollywood today. Hulk Hogan tried and had moderate success. But now we hear that Becky Lynch is got the Hollywood bug, and she may have not the murder hornet, but she may have the best opportunity to scratch that itch because she has paired up with The Rock's production company and will be appearing on HBO's Billions sometime in the future. And that, of course, has spurred speculation that she may indeed go further than that, including she may be tapped to be appearing in a future release from a superhero franchise that's not to be confused with your Mighty Mouse t-shirts that you send around the world.
Wasn't she on
Marvel.
last night?
She was on last night.
Yeah, she was.
He was traveling and he was busy doing other things. But
I'm in a different time zone. That doesn't air until like 2 o'clock tomorrow here. I'm jet lagged. I'm trying to figure it out.
Becky Lynch is under The Rock's umbrella, which is humongous for her. She's also mentioned that John Cena's been mentoring her. And let's face it, they need a female action superstar in Hollywood. And Becky Lynch is charismatic. The fans love her. She connects well with people. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if she doesn't get elevated and do some great things. The Rock knows money. He makes tons of it. He falls into it. Everything he does, you can ask Drew about even the tequila gimmick that he has out there now. Everything he touches turns to gold. And Becky Lynch will be a star in Hollywood because she'll be surrounded by the right people. So good for her.
Wait, surrounded by the what?
Cool, by the right people.
Oh.
So it's going to be cool watching Seth. It's going to be cool watching Seth Rollins be the date to all these things on the red carpet.
Ooh.
See what he did there?
I did.
Yep.
What did I do?
You constantly like to take little digs at Seth Rollins or Ricochet or whoever you can.
No. I mean, Seth Rollins is the doting boyfriend. If you look at every time she does something great, he's right there, as he should be. But Ricochet is a different story. I can't see him walking the red carpet at all.
Because he wouldn't be seen, right?
Well, I don't know about that, you know.
Look, I've talked on this show for a while about my I'm not as big a Becky Lynch fan as everyone else has become, and I think that her star has faded a little bit in WWE because you made the point for a very long time. How long can you be that angry? And right now, for Becky Lynch, for me in wrestling, she feels like she's a bit forced. It doesn't feel like it's really her. People have likened her to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, she's no Austin because Austin was real. And you talk about wrestling characters and people in wrestling who were the best at what they did. They were all extensions of themselves. Let's first ask that question of the associates. Do you feel that Becky Lynch is still at the level of stardom that everyone thought she would be at, call it 1 year ago? And if so, do you feel that character is sustainable? And do you believe it? Do you believe it to be real? We'll start with Josh Chernoff.
That is a hat trick of no's. I don't think she is as big a star as she was before. I don't think that as you mentioned, you can only be angry for so long. I don't think it's sustainable. And I don't even remember what the last one was, but it was a no. What was your last question?
Yeah, I certainly don't remember.
Okay, but no.
Is
I
it
think
sustainable? Do you believe it?
No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. Like you mentioned, Austin was real. Austin, but it was also during a time, Becky Lynch is somebody who goes to work and I would assume really enjoys her job, whereas Austin is someone who went to work in a very cutthroat environment. Not to say he didn't enjoy it, but a very cutthroat environment where he really legitimately felt like he was competing every single day for something, whereas I don't feel like Becky Lynch feels that way. In my opinion, I mean, I don't know what she thinks or feels, but yeah, the character does not work at all. The way that it's been presented recently.
Jason Solomon, what do you think?
Yeah, I have to echo, exactly what he said. To me, the anger came from the feud with Charlotte. It felt real because she had been marginalized for so long and the fans really got behind her. Now she's been champion for over a year. So you're going to have that segment of people that are getting sick of her anyway. Like you said, how long could the anger be sustained for? What is there to be angry about? Now she's become... that which wasn't before. Now she's the untouchable one. If anything, I mean, she has absolutely nothing to be angry about. So she had the perfect foil in Ronda Rousey. Ever since Rousey stepped away, it hasn't been the same for Becky.
Yeah.
I'm not saying she doesn't have her fans and that she's not one of the more, popular stars that they have. But ever since WrestleMania, that was the payoff a year ago, and there's just been something missing since then.
Very valid, and that's two who say that maybe Becky isn't quite the Becky that everyone thought she would turn out to be. Meathead, what do you say?
You guys make great points. I'm going to kind of work along with that. No, she's not as popular. Not having a crowd doesn't help, right? We can't tell how the fans are reacting. The being angry all the time, great point again. To bring her back, I'm going to try to take this positive and bring it back up again. To bring her back, I mean, we always talk about the money is in the chase, right? The money is in the person chasing. She has nothing to chase. You're right. She has probably the world in her hands right now. She has everything going for her. She loves coming to work. She's a top star on the show. How do you bring her back? You have to take everything from her. Somehow she has to be pushing against the man, pushing against the authority, no pun intended, but you have to give her something to fight uphill for to get someone invested in.
Yep. And she's champion.
That's what I'm saying. She's
right.
champion.
Exactly. So there's nothing for her to be chasing. It's just, I don't know.
She's chasing her tail right now, in my opinion, but be that as it may.
You know.
Andrew, what do you say about Miss Lynch?
Yeah, I never understood the Austin comparison at all. I know she bled before a Survivor Series match, which you were supposed to have. I just never understood it. The whole Austin McGregor thing that she tried to portray was, to me, just never really fit her. I understand what they're trying to do. Her WrestleMania 35 main event, in my opinion, fell flat. And I think that's where the downfall happened with Becky Lynch. Super talented. She needs good dance partners, whereas major superstars in professional wrestling, in my opinion, when they get to that level, could have a good match with anybody. And I just don't think that Becky Lynch right now is that person, unfortunately. I don't see the hype.
Are we talking about, and are you, Andrew, talking about her wrestling ability?
No, I think her wrestling ability is fantastic. I just don't think she's up there with Charlotte Flair. I think Charlotte Flair could have a good match with a broomstick.
Now, do you say that because Charlotte Flair happened to be one of the picks that you made in the PWR Fantasy Draft round 1, 2, and 3 last week?
No, I've just watched the evolution of Charlotte Flair, and I just think that she is the best women's wrestler going today.
Dave?
Damian,
Yes,
being
Dave.
angry all the time only benefits one person, and that's Bruce Banner. Other than that, there's no payoff. But
That's
if you
Superman,
look at
right?
the way, very close, the other green guy. But if you look at the way Becky Lynch was elevated, she had her program with Charlotte, couldn't beat Charlotte, finally turned on Charlotte. The crowd went, as Pat Patterson would say, banana. Then goes in, setting up for Survivor Series against Ronda Rousey. Nia Jax knocks her out, gives her a concussion. Oh my gosh, Spirit of 76. Becky Lynch comes out, head wrapped up, wants to fight, can't fight, wants to give the fans what they want, but she can't. Fans get even more behind her. Goes into the Royal Rumble, beat up, battered, bum knee, everything. Oh my gosh, she won the Royal Rumble, heading into WrestleMania against the most dominant female prize fighter in a long time, Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair. That was it. That was the big pop. Oh my God, she overcame all the obstacles. With the exception, and I'm being very serious here, with the exception of her program where she teamed with Seth Rollins against Lacey Evans and Baron Corbin shortly after that, I can't think of a memorable program she's had minus the terrible match program that she had with Shayna Baszler at WrestleMania. Everything else she has done has been very bland, very vanilla. There's no reason for the fans to get behind her because she dominates everybody. She is never in peril. She's never that beat up. She's never that hurt where there is fear she might lose. And that edge being taken away from Becky Lynch has been a detriment to her going forward.
So is there a way to fix her? Is there a way to fix, not necessarily to fix Becky, because I agree, and Andrew, I asked that question in jest when I asked before. I knew you weren't talking about her wrestling ability because there's no doubt about that. But is there a way to reignite the fire that was Becky Lynch?
Yeah.
If they would have had Shayna Baszler destroy it at WrestleMania, absolutely. Yeah. That was what they should have done. That could have been the Rocky 3 or Rocky 4 moment.
Yeah, I don't know Becky personally, and I'm not making this as I know her statement, but some people just get comfortable, and right now it seems to me that Becky Lynch is very comfortable in that position, and she needs to be knocked off her pedestal.
So that's the Rocky 3 moment, because Rocky was, ducking Mr. T, and Nelson Clubber Lang knocked him out. So, yeah, we need a Rocky 3 moment.
Jason, what do you say? How would you get Becky Lynch back on that rocket ship that she was on before?
Well, I mean, let me just say, I think there was a huge mistake by not having her destroyed by Shayna at WrestleMania. It just felt to me they were just being too cute for their own good with that, the roll-up finish. It didn't do Shayna any favors. As far as what you can do to, I don't even like using the word rehab because, she's still in a good position. I don't want to make it sound
doesn't
like they've
you
done
using
wrong
that
by
word
her.
either.
Yeah.
Not after the program.
Yeah. Although after this week, maybe. But because they've I think badly handled certain other stars, you could say, rehab for them. As far as her, one of two things. Number one, I think you might want to explore the idea of a character change. There was a period a number of months ago before all of this happened and they were wrestling in front of empty buildings where she was coming out and she was kind of doing the Conor McGregor thing and she was dressing up as a queen and she was very full of herself, and it felt very heelish to me. It felt like maybe we were seeing a character shift, and then it never came. I don't know that that would be such a bad idea. I know she has a lot of fans, but there's a quality about her now where maybe she is comfortable. Maybe she is full of herself, and we need another baby face that maybe has been marginalized, like she was, to come along and be the new Becky Lynch. So Becky has become, using like a comic book analogy, it's almost like she's become the one thing that she hated. She's become Charlotte Flair in a way. Mm-hmm. So that could be, I think, an interesting way to go about it. And if you do that, it's just a matter of who do you match up against her? Is there somebody on the main roster? Do you promote somebody from NXT? That's probably the direction I would go in with her.
I happen to, if I may, I agree 100%. I think she needs a heel turn because she's been a heel and just not acknowledging it, everything she's been doing. And I think, they did a flip with Lacey Evans. I actually think that Lacey Evans as a face and Becky Lynch as a heel could be an interesting pair. So but I agree completely with what you're saying. I think that's the change that needs to happen.
Seems like some of the fans feel the same way. We've got comments now coming into us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you're watching on any of those channels, feel free to share with us. Enlightened Kennedy says, in reference to our conversation about Becky Lynch, I've been a fan of hers for a while, but it's hard to root for her now. I assume you're talking about Becky Lynch there. I don't want to put words in your mouth. And then Telvin Kipapa says, yes, after Becky's program with Rhonda, it's been, what is that emoji? David, you read those, I don't. Is that blah, z, snore, zoo, snooze?
It's a little bit of everything.
And Bill D. Streeter
I'm
on
not wearing
Facebook.
my glasses. I can't see that stuff. Come on.
Bill D. Streeter on Facebook saying, Becky's never fell off. She's been on and always will be the best. Becky is like the male version of Bret Hart.
Oh. This is somebody who has never watched Bret Hart in his prime.
Becky has way more charisma than Bret Hart, though.
All right, Dave.
Oh, come on.
Go.
That's a low blow.
No.
Oh,
no wonder
did we
you're
strike
such
a
a
chord?
heat
Did
machine,
you
Dave.
strike a chord here, Dave, with talking about Bret Hart?
That's a low blow.
No, I'm just
See
kidding.
him right there?
I just know that Drew loves Bret, and it was just, for me, it was an opportunity I had to take. That's all.
Name a bad Bret Hart
yes,
match.
because Bret Hart's the best in the history of ever.
Pump the brakes, all of you. All I said is Becky has more charisma. I didn't say she's a better wrestler than Bret Hart.
I actually disagree with that. I think it's all about how you measure charisma, because Bret Hart managed to be so unbelievably real, or I suppose believably real, that I think, yeah, he didn't have the big over-the-top promos. He wasn't really big like that. But when he got fired up, it was believable. So, I mean, charisma, it depends on how you want to, quantify the amount of charisma. Because I think, yeah, compare him to like Shawn Michaels, or even compare him to like his brother Owen or something. No, he didn't have that type of charisma, but he had an ability, I think, to transcend and connect with fans in a way that Becky Lynch, I don't think, has been able to. I think a character and a circumstance has, but
Becky
I don't think
connected from Survivor Series from Nia Jax to WrestleMania.
I don't even think to WrestleMania. I think midway through that build, it petered out. I really don't think by the time they got to WrestleMania, I don't think anybody cared.
The problem with that WrestleMania match is everyone knew that Ronda was done, so nobody was invested. It's just like that Goldberg-Lesnar match.
And the finish was terrible. Come on.
Oh, God.
Also, I have to point this out. That's not the match that people wanted. I mean, let's just be honest here.
I
The match
agree.
should have been one-on-one. Becky Lynch and Shayna Baszler. That was built for months. And then Charlotte gets inserted. And look, she's great, but that's not the match that people
But
want.
Jason, does that show that WWE has no confidence in Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey one-on-one?
No, I
don't think it shows a lack of confidence. I think it just shows that they wanted Charlotte to be part of that first all-women's main event. They felt she needs to be part of history, and she was inserted. She was shoehorned into the match.
Because I think
the rub was more important than the match.
Yeah, I think they see in the future, I'm sure they see a lot in Becky Lynch, but I think they have decided, they being WWE, has decided that Charlotte is the future of the women's division in the WWE for years and years to come. And like you were just saying, Jason, I think they wanted her in that as a part of history.
Spirited discussion, good discussion about Becky Lynch, longer than I thought, because we didn't even finish or pay off the tease, if you will, because after she appeared in Billions last night on HBO, which I watched live as it aired. There's talk that she may be in the future appearing in a Marvel Studios film as well. I don't know if that's a done deal yet, but I'm sure you've all seen the reports of the rumors. I don't know if that's as relevant because there was a good discussion about her wrestling, but she would be the first, unless I'm forgetting someone, please let me know if I am, the first female wrestling star to make that crossover, because if she does get that opportunity in one of the great Marvel films coming up, because I say great because just about all of them have been, that could be her springboard, much like Batista's was.
Yeah, if she winds up in Marvel, you can expect the Becky Lynch career to be shortened by 5 years.
But lengthened by 20 at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she could have a lot of potential in that type of environment, in the Marvel environment. She
do we
really
know which
does
movie it is?
No.
I heard the title. I'm not familiar with it, but Marvel has so many different divisions coming out right now. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be great. And you know what it is also, because a lot of the wrestling stars go to different Comic-Cons, whether it be C2E2 or Ace Comic-Con or San Diego Comic-Con. And listen, Hollywood execs are at those things. And when they see a line, when Becky Lynch was as over if she could ever possibly be, a line for her at Comic-Con so long, people take notice to that. And they're like, hey, let's look into this. Let's invest in this. Is this the female version of John Cena? Because John Cena, so far, his Hollywood career has been pretty solid. He's very busy. And I'm sure the same will happen with Becky.
So in this show...
Cena, go ahead, Damon. All right. John Cena is not The Rock. The Rock is literally the top action star. But John Cena's career, we can't just blow it off. I mean, John Cena has made solid movies. John Cena's in franchises. John Cena makes family movies. John Cena, he's been the bad guy on a couple things. So
give John Cena a chance, though.
But it's funny. It's funny though, Meathead, because if you look at The Rock, you say John Cena's not The Rock, but The Rock 10 years ago in Hollywood was making movies, making family movies, making the Rundown, different things like that. Right, but he was making his Disney movies, he was making his other things. He was not what he is now. So again, you look at John Cena, who knows what John Cena's going to be or Batista's going to be 10 years from now. And that's the thing with Becky Lynch. She might start out, she'll do a Marvel movie, she'll do this, that, and the other, and they could blow up.
Not going to happen. John Cena is typecast. John Cena is the musclehead. The Rock got beyond that because of his deeper character depth, if you will. John Cena, when you hear his voice, when you hear him,
The Rock is not typecast? Are you kidding me?
Let me rephrase that. The Rock is typecast as Arnold Schwarzenegger or Bruce Willis or the top stars in Hollywood, whereas John Cena is typecast as Joyce DeWitt or
what?
A bit side character, if you will. And I'm not knocking him. I'm just simply saying The Rock has dynamic range.
Joyce DeWitt when his name's on the poster.
The Rock has dynamic range. John Cena, when you hear his voice, when you see him in any role, he's the same exact person. The Rock is not. His acting abilities, The Rock's, are far more advanced, and maybe that's because of the time in the business, but I think it's more natural than John Cena. But here's the point that needs to be made, is David, in that last segment, in the last 20 minutes, Becky Lynch has been compared to John Cena, Bret Hart, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Yet we're talking about how her star has faded, yet those are the comparisons that the panel has made. Does that require some explanation?
I don't think that's really the comparisons that the panel made.
Those are the words I'm putting in your mouth. This is justice with Damian Nelson.
They don't taste great. Here's the thing. The fact that somebody wrote in that she was better than Bret Hart, and that person needs to go on the WWE Network and watch some Bret Hart because they have no idea what they're talking about. But the others have been compared to John Cena or being compared to The Rock or whatever it is. That was talking about the potential of their careers outside of wrestling, not comparing to them in professional wrestling. That's just my opinion speaking on behalf of the panel.
Well, we'll let you get the last word then, Josh, since you have decided to be the voice of the voiceless, even though everyone has a voice here. And let's move on to the next. What's wrong with that? I'm comparing Becky Lynch to CM Punk.
All right, carry on.
Thought that was the goal of this segment,
Stealing
is
his-
compare Becky Lynch to every big star in the history of professional wrestling. Look, next story we want to talk about, though, folks, is something you, Dave, and you, Andrew, spoke about on a podcast that we did last week. And I'll leave it to you two to give the details after I give the headline. See what I did there, Dave? And that is that the state of Florida, the great state of Florida, has decided that screw COVID-19. We're just going to start opening stuff, beaches, wherever else, including maybe sporting events with up to 25% capacity, including that of potentially WWE. When, remember, Linda McMahon paid off the governor so that they can continue to tape at the Performance Center. And also...
You know what? That happens everywhere. I've paid off people before. You have. Come on.
How do you think I got on here?
I've never paid
Exactly.
anyone off except that one time I left it on the nightstand. And I did not pay anyone off, but I tipped that housekeeper real good. Look,
Consuela.
whether you agree or disagree with it, this is potentially big news because it could put live wrestling fans back into some of these venues. So, Andrew, you shared the story first from the PWR team. What do you know? What have you heard? And then let's talk about what it could mean.
Well, it's basically the reopening of Florida. They're talking about 25% capacity in arenas. So if you are having a double or nothing in Jacksonville, which I believe is the plan at Daly's Place or Daly's Place, the capacity is 5,500, I believe. So you're looking at, 1,300 if they want to run 25%. And it's just basically, we're reopening with the hope of getting back to normalcy. And realistically, nobody knows how this is going to go. Dave made a fantastic point on the podcast. You have to have your, 6 feet apart from each other. It's going to be a totally different atmosphere, but at least we're going to get some fans, hopefully, back in professional wrestling. And Florida and Oklahoma seem to be the first two. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Why do we need it is the question. Last week, I believe you on this show, Andrew, said that perhaps WWE is going to move forward without ever having fans and doing live events again. So why is it so important to have those fans in these buildings, especially if you're going to have them a coffin apart from each other and not able and wearing face masks and just it's going to be awkward. Isn't it best to wait, David?
You know what? I think it is. I mean, you got to figure they're going to have at least a 4 to 6 foot high plexiglass separating the fans from the talent, because you don't want people in the front row or second row slapping the guys on the back, trying to give a high five. How many times have you seen somebody get punched and all of a sudden, force of habit or not, they're spitting into the second or third row? So there's all those other variables that I don't think everyone has taken into consideration. And also, Drew and I talked about, I don't know how the venues can make money, because if you have to have 25% capacity, and if you get, let's say, 100 people in the front row, well, now you can only have 25 people sitting in the front row. So that's really maybe 6 people on each side of the ring in the front row, and then going back. It's going to look empty. It's going to look awkward. Who gets those seats? How are you going to pay for them? How do you get them?
But is it going to be any worse?
Right, exactly. No, and that's the thing. Look at the ratings. We talk about this week after week after week. The ratings. You don't think that fans in a building is going to change the ratings?
No,
wrestling is all about atmosphere.
Ratings are. We decided the other week. Ratings again, only on Wednesday night are relevant.
Well, then I guess Fox made a bad investment, huh?
No, Fox is making. Look at all the programming they're getting from WWE from the library that they're now putting on their networks because they don't have programming. They made a tremendous investment.
Well, ratings do matter, though. I mean, they absolutely matter.
Fox.
You guys are. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Fox is airing apparently a best of WWE ladder matches special, I think, next Saturday on the main network. So they're getting quite their money's worth as far as their library is concerned.
But my question is, when you bring the fans back in, if it's not in the PC, a building that they own, are you telling me that now these other buildings are only going to charge 25 to 30% of their normal rent?
Well, it's better than.
Here's the thing to think about, though, Dave. The buildings are making no money right now. So they're going to have to adjust their model, much like WWE and every other business is going to have to adjust their model. You're right. They may lose money because you got unions, you got all these agreements that you need to honor. But I think we're going to come out of this with a lot of that being significantly reworked. And the normal that was is not the normal that will be. we don't know what that's going to be. I do think there is some merit. I was speaking in jest, I think you could say. I do think there is some merit to having fans there. Absolutely, because a lot of, not just wrestling fans, but a lot of sports fans and a lot of people who watch television want to be told who to follow and who to cheer for and who to like and who to dislike. So in that regard, it absolutely helps. But I'm looking at the visual of not being short-sighted and seeing, okay, woohoo! Fans return to Raw on Monday night from the Performance Center, and there's a whopping 72 people in there, and they're scattered throughout the audience. But then at the same time, I think about AEW and Dynamite, and having those very few people out at ringside for that show changes it dramatically. So we'll go around the horn quickly with thoughts from the two people I think we haven't heard yet, Meathead and Josh. Is this a good idea? Not COVID-19 or don't need opinions on that necessarily, but should they go all or nothing and wait, or should they do it now because they can? Meathead.
They should go ahead and do it. Honestly, let's take that model that we talked about, where a building might have to do it because they're not getting any money, and kind of move that up towards the state. That's why the state's opening. They need that money too. There's tax money in there too. So now that gets money for the government. Obviously, the government's a business. As much as we hate it, the government's supposed to be us. But the government's a business, so they need that money too. Yes, let's get some fans in there. Let's do plexiglass around the ring, kind of like hockey, so that way they can smack on the plastic and get that going. We can do something. I mean, WWE has the opportunity. AEW's got the opportunity. You go to your local grocery store, they got plastic up. It's not like it's not available. Build a barrier around the ring. Let's do this.
Josh, sure enough.
Yeah, I think ideally, I'm one of those people. I believe that better safe than sorry, so we should wait. But ideally, I think the idea of having fans back will be enormous to the quality of the product, and especially for a pay-per-view for AEW for Double or Nothing, which I believe is their 1-year anniversary of for a pay-per-view. So I think that it's important to have fans if it's safe and if they're doing the right things, taking the right measures. I think it's very important to have the fans because, like you mentioned, Damien, the just like the 6 people around the ring at AEW have made an enormous difference. WWE has felt more sterile than they have ever felt before. And that's with they feel sterile with arenas of 14,000. So it's time that if it's safe, then I think, yes, they absolutely need it. But I also don't think that having fans in attendance is worth any sort of risk whatsoever because it's wrestling. So
we'll put that to bed. And David, our next topic is the WWE release of Curtis Axel. Wait a minute, do I have that right? Yes. Last week, joining the 20 plus releases that were executed a couple of weeks before. And I don't know if you can call it surprising, but it seems odd the timing of it occurred after everybody else. Do you make anything of this release, David?
Well, the rumor innuendo that I was told or heard, have read, seen, whatever, was that he asked for his release. Because let's face it, they have nothing for him either right now. I mean, he's going to home. He has a downside guarantee at home and can't be on the road and can't do house shows and try to sell something. So it's probably easier for him just to say, hey, I'll go on the indies. And he'll probably get more money on the indies because he'll get paid in cash and he can sell merchandise of him, his dad, his grandfather, all of it together. And he'll do quite a bit better once everything opens up again. But, Josh, talking about when things are going to be safe, let's be honest, it's going to be a long time before everyone feels they're going to be safe. So
I don't think that's so
going to be a right time.
I don't think that's so certain. This country's been, this is unique. This has never happened before, but this country's been in states of hysteria. States have been in states of hysteria in the past. I'm not saying it's not justified, but it could be. You're right in the regard, David. It could be 2 years from now. It could be a year from now, but it could also be 6 months from now. And if certain people,
I'm
not one individual, but if certain people have their way, it'll be like this didn't happen within the next 3 weeks or 3 months, and that's a challenge.
Well,
and that's we don't know what the end is.
You also have to think about who these people are who are going to be showing up, because and I don't mean that in like a derogatory way to them, but you're talking about people who have decided that going to this professional wrestling show the first time with no statistics on whether or not anyone has caught something at a wrestling show since opening.
Oh, they have.
I'm just everyone's caught something at wrestling.
Again,
but
the whole landscape's going to change here. There's no way it doesn't, because I'm sure the WWE is going to look into maybe buying a building or renting a facility where they can control everything and produce weekly television from, not the Performance Center. Only because of the risk that you're 100% saying here, Damien, is that the country is going to change drastically, and Vince McMahon and the heads at WWE said that on their call. They said live events are changing, and drastically.
Well, let's get back to the story that we were talking about. I don't want to dig too deep into the future of this country. We've got a lot of big decisions to make in the next few months. But Curtis Axel, and the hint earlier was, you look at a Cody Rhodes, you look at a Ted DiBiase Jr., you look at now Mr. Perfect Son. So they were all there, right? They all had the opportunity in WWE. They all got the chance, if you will. And you can argue why things didn't quite end in their longevity, their careers being very, very long in that company. But aside from Randy Orton and other names I can't remember, second generation direct father, son, daughter, son things haven't seemed to pan out very well in WWE in the last 20 years. Am I missing something?
Well, I mean, you got The Rock's been successful. Charlotte Flair's been successful. Randy Orton's been successful.
Yep.
The Usos? I mean,
nope.
you could say the Usos,
true.
right?
True, but that's different, because there's, 17 Rikishi kids?
Yeah, the Samoans just churn out stars. They don't, no, you can't not be a star there. But my opinion on that is that a lot of times, they have really big shoes to fill. So that's going to be a tough thing right off the bat. No matter, they're automatically being compared. And you look at somebody like Curtis Axel. I mean, he's not being compared to, a guy that wrestled before who was his dad. He's being compared to Mr. Perfect, to Kurt Hennig, like one of the best of all time. So, I mean, that's a tough thing. However, I personally happen to think that they never scratched the surface with the talent that he has. And when I found out that he was released, I was happy, because I really think that, look, you never want to see anybody lose their job, and I don't know whether or not he asked for it or not, but I looked at it and I said, long term, this is going to be a guy like Cody Rhodes, in my opinion. I don't mean, being a vice president of his own company, but
endorsed
he's
in one
going
of the top
to
stars
become
in professional wrestling history. Yeah, I think that's a stretch.
What being what?
Endorsed by me and one of the top stars in professional wrestling history, which is what Cody is. I think that's a bit of a stretch.
Well, I will endorse him, which is not quite as high as your endorsement. No, but hey,
that's like the Allentown Gazette.
Now listen,
versus the Washington Post.
Curtis Axel can now be Joe Hennig.
Yes,
and he's going to be great.
Well, here's my question.
Now he gets to be his namesake.
Here's my question, and I'd love to hear Jason's take on this. So, is it actually a curse to be a son of a or a daughter of a? But in the cases where they actually used it, I think Cody gets thrown out the window there. But they used it with Charlotte. They used it with Randy Orton, albeit minimally, because they had Cowboy Bob in a couple of times. Is it a curse to be associated with a legend of the past and to be their family member, specifically their son or daughter, and try to make it in WWE specifically?
Yeah, I think it puts an enormous amount of pressure that's really not fair, to the son or the daughter, because you've got, look at Charlotte Flair. Now, Charlotte Flair is a special kind of athlete. Rick has said that he thinks that she's a better athlete than he ever was, but I think she's the exception to the rule. You don't really see a lot of people like her or like The Rock with the charisma that he has. So I do think it handicaps them a lot. As far as Curtis Axel goes, it's unfair in that when people compare him to his father had a special, unique charisma that he just doesn't have. Mm-hmm. Or if he has it, we really haven't had the chance to see it. I look at him, he's 40 years old. I wonder, I don't see him having the same opportunity that Cody had to really reinvigorate his career and become some kind of big name. Some guys are just at a certain level, and just because their father was here doesn't mean that they're also going to be at that same level or higher. Some people are not destined for that. Some people just don't have the same tools in the toolbox that they had. I never saw Curtis Axel as being a marquee, headlining type of performer. And I still don't see that. And no, I'm not knocking him at all. I just think people, because he's the son of Mr. Perfect, or because people say, oh, WWE didn't do everything they could with him. True, to a point. I mean, he did have that run with Paul Heyman as his manager, Intercontinental title.
That they cut short.
It was cut short, and that was my point. I do think he was given chances that were cut short, and perhaps he had more to show us that he didn't. But he was there for a long time, you know, and he did the Rybaxel stuff, the B Team, the Miztourage. He was pigeonholed into a comedy category, so I think him leaving is a good thing. Hopefully financially it turns out to be good for him, and now he'll have the chance to show people what he's got. But I just don't see him as being that elite performer that people, I think some people think he's going to be. I just don't see it.
And I think that answers Jason, the question. Go ahead, David.
Well, but Jason, like you said, you just listed off different factions and rebuilds and rebrandings. He was also in, I think it was the Social Warriors, whatever it was. Yeah, I mean, so he's had like 5 different opportunities. Unfortunately, his first opportunity was him being booked as not perfect, beating guys by fluke and by accident, or being in the right place at the right time. And I think that can be a huge detriment for the fans in the beginning, losing faith in him early on.
And, you know, Dave, you used to say this all the time, too. Do you see Curtis Axel on a poster? And that's kind of what, you know, Jason's point was, is I don't see Curtis Axel. While I enjoy him on the card, he should be on the card. Maybe he can do a thing here or there. He's not on the poster for me.
No, they just never used him the right way. So
I agree with Dave. They never used him the right way. I think he could have been, I think everything, his entire presentation, from his appearance to everything that they did with him, he is such a skilled in-ring wrestler that I just think
where does that get you? Where does being a skilled in-ring wrestler get you in today's day and age of professional wrestling?
Nowhere if creative doesn't put you.
They put him with Heyman. They put him with Heyman. Right, granted, it was for 2 weeks, but what more could they do?
But to Josh's point and to Dave's point here as well, Curtis Axel was basically booked as Mr. Perfect Son, just like Rocky Maivia was booked as High Chief Peter Maivia and Rocky Johnson's kid. And it didn't work. The Rock got over when The Rock became The Rock. He dropped all that stuff. And Curtis Axel, Joe Henning, could be a star in whatever company he decides to land with if he just is Joe Henning. They didn't need to book him as Mr. Perfect Son or Curtis Axel. They just needed to book him as Joe Henning.
Well, we got to close that subject. Great discussion, though, guys. We have more to get to, but before we do, I want to remind everybody that every Friday night you can catch David and myself as part of OVW Wrestling on U2 America, not YouTube America. We're on that live right now, but on U2 America, it's the PWR headlines each and every Friday night. And not only can you enjoy some great Ohio Valley wrestling action, but you can see me as part of the show, and you can then try to figure out exactly which shirt it is Dave chose to wear.
You can see us. Yes, and all you got to do is go to collarandelbowbrand.com. You can get it again by using a promo code PWR360 at collarandelbowbrand.com. Save some money, great shirts, and hey, they even have some Tiger King wear. It's awesome stuff.
Why do you keep pushing the Tiger King so much? You've been there, haven't you?
No, because you know what?
Show sucked.
You know what?
Never watched.
It's just when you think of independent wrestling, it's Tiger King. And when I watched the show the first time, I'm like, God, this guy, he belongs in wrestling. And then I found out he was involved in wrestling. And then my heart sunk because I'm like, oh my God, now we're all in that carny business. And he took carny to a whole different level. But collarandelbowbrand.com, PWR360. Get some of the most comfortable, sweetest shirts you're ever going to get.
Only about 10 minutes remaining before Raw goes live on the air on the USA Network. 2 quick news items I want to get to, though, and get your opinions on them. David, first, Lio Rush, one of your favorite stars because of his size and stature, has stated that perhaps he may never wrestle again, and he's pursuing a bit of a musical career. What do you say? that you just said it. That chuckle was everything right there. That chuckle right there was, why do you want me to talk about Lio Rush? That's exactly what it was. He's a little guy. Why am I going to talk about Lio Rush? So I'm going to ask somebody who actually cares. Andrew, Lio Rush, wrestling, is his future over, or will we see him back?
Yeah, I think we'll see him back. Not in WWE, but yeah, I think we'll see him back. And he's talented. He'll make some money somewhere else. He just needs to stop complaining. Just enjoy your job and make good money.
All right, next story. Jimmy Uso is injured. We talked about the Usos earlier. Just talked about the generations of wrestling. This is a big blow because the Usos were part of that whole tag team the hot potato championship, and now not only is Jimmy injured, going to be out for 6 to 9 months with a leg injury, but what does that mean for Jay, Dave?
You know what? It's one of two things. Well, it's actually one of three things. And I hope it's not him staying at home for the next 6 to 9 months. Either let him go and have a singles run and maybe chase after Sami Zayn if he wants to show up, or Cesaro or Shinsuke, or bring up his brother, Sefa Fatu, and let the Usos be, the Freebird version of the Usos, and bring in the other brother who looks just like the other two.
You know what? That's a great idea.
They just have terrible luck. Those guys cannot stay on TV for a year straight.
Well, some of it was of their own doing, unfortunately, but yeah, you're right. All right, well, that is the news, and we've got some previewing to do, but before we get to that, we want to let everybody know that coming up next Monday night, right here on this very program, we will be joined by a very special guest, and he'll be joining us to talk about the movie that will be dropping on Fight TV that weekend on May 16th. Jon Moxley of AEW All Elite Wrestling will be our guest here on PrimeTime next Monday night, so be sure to tune in for that. And David?
And you can thank me, because if I don't draft him on Team Super Friends in the 3rd round, I don't think he'd be showing up.
You know, it's interesting. I plan to ask him about that, and I'm scared to, because when you draft somebody, it means that there is a debilitating injury in their future.
You know what? That's in the past. I've had 2 years off of the draft. Everything's fine. The voodoo dolls are no longer in the house. All good.
No, now you just have Alf.
Speaking of the draft, folks, points begin accumulating, getting scored this weekend at Money in the Bank. And Money in the Bank will be unique this weekend from WWE headquarters, but that won't be the only unique thing. We found out last week that the matches, both the women's and the men's Money in the Bank match, will occur simultaneously and throughout the duration of the pay-per-view. And the first thing I thought about when I heard about that, David, was the fight that Harley Race and Hacksaw Jim Duggan had at the Slammies in '87 that went for the span of the entire show.
And you know what? You got to wonder how much of Money in the Bank is going to be that word everyone loves to use, cinematic. Because I have a hard time believing they're going to put together the whole show live on pay-per-view on the network with so many X factors involved.
Yeah, I'm not sure it needs to be live, though. In fact, I think they may have taped it already.
Yeah.
It looks like we lost the world there,
Yeah.
except for me.
Yep.
So, welcome back.
I enjoyed one part of that. Hi. Okay, I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Spot.
No, I think that I love the idea of having them run at the same time, because I originally was thinking to myself, like, you do the men's or the women's first. By the time you get to the next thing, you're like, all right, what? Like, we just watched this whole thing. Not sure how I feel about the fact they'll be cutting in and cutting out. I feel like that's just going to take you out of the match itself. I'd rather it just be one, just one long portion of it that we watch. I do think that there's some really fun opportunities about having them kind of cross into the matches together, which adds to the uniqueness of this event. I'm going into it really kind of like this reminds me of a buddy of mine and myself when we were kids. We used to have our wrestling figures on top of the old Ghostbusters firehouse, and they would just knock each other off the firehouse until like the last one was standing. So when I heard this, I was like, wow, this is like something I booked when I was 6. So I'm just really excited about it and want to see what happens. I hope nobody gets thrown off the top of the building, unless the Big Show's there, because he manages to survive that. But yeah, I think it's going to be kind of cool. But I'm not sure about the coming in, coming out. That to me feels more like a 24/7 title skit. So I'm not excited about that aspect.
Jason, what do you think of the blended Money in the Bank and the duration occurring over the entirety of the event?
Well, I'm so happy you brought up that Harley Race Hacksaw Jim Duggan skit. That's one of my earliest wrestling memories, and I loved it. So if this is in the same vein, even though that was played up for comedy with chickens and turkeys and all kinds of things, I like the idea of just mass chaos because, we were talking before about how lifeless these shows have been, in the empty buildings. So the fact that they're thinking outside the box on this and putting it in the building, and it's like, Money in the Bank Die Hard edition, you got to fight to the roof. I like that. I think running them simultaneously, you do run the risk of it being a little too busy, but why not? At this point, you got to try new things. You got to keep people interested. I think that's one way to do it. I believe it is going to be cinematic, and I like the cinematic matches. You also have to make sure you don't overdo it. So after Money in the Bank, maybe not do cinematic for a while. But I agree with Josh. I like the idea. I think it's a lot going on at once, keeping people engaged, and I think it'll be fun.
And tonight on Raw, we have a last chance, a gauntlet match that's going to determine the final participant in the match, replacing Apollo Crews, who was injured last week on Raw. In that men's matchup, Oh, exactly, Crews. David Hero, because you picked him in the draft a couple years ago, too.
A couple years ago. You know what? If Apollo Crews was in this match still, Shayna Baszler would probably knock him out.
True.
Andrew, Money in the Bank, duel across the show. Your thoughts?
I love it. I think it's a way to keep people invested, like Jason said. I like the whole, if they're going to try something, this is the time to do it. They don't have a live crowd. They don't need to keep people entertained in a building. They just need to keep people entertained at home. And I think that's the way to do it. To drag this out throughout the whole show is great, because otherwise you have 2 Money in the Bank matches and then it's basically, okay, I'm done here. I've seen everything I need to see. And I love it. I love it. I love the fact that it's at WWE headquarters and they could destroy that building. And I'm hoping for a Vince McMahon appearance. I absolutely love it.
Oh, me too.
Well, folks, thank you for that. Money in the Bank is this weekend. WWE Network. Points will begin to accumulate in the PWR Fantasy Draft. As you know, I have the winning team. Dave has the last place team. Drew has what might be the second or third place team. Linda has what may be the second or third place team. And Meathead is the wild card, the PWR Fantasy Draft. We picked rounds 1, 2, and 3 last week on Wednesday night. And this week, Wednesday, we pick rounds 4, 5, and 6. Then 7, 8, 9 are on Friday night. The draft finishes in advance of Money in the Bank. And again, please tune into the picks to see how ridiculous theirs are. And then you don't need to hear anything else about the draft again until after WrestleMania next year, when you hear that I again am new draft champion.
I have the best team on paper. There's no way I can lose.
I can't wait till I win. You are never going to hear the end of it.
I'm going to take the whole thing.
All right. And
Josh,
don't forget, I'm also a former winner.
Josh, who are you wearing today?
Am I? What's that? It cut off.
Well, who are you wearing?
Who are you rooting for? And you could just tell me.
Who am I rooting for?
No, who are you wearing? Your tie. Show us the shirt off tie this week.
What? Oh, the tie? It's
Is that a Topps card?
Yeah, I was
it's
gonna say
the
that was
old
like Topps
school.
upper deck.
I wore this when I was working at Star, when they had the old school WCW theme. So it's me on the tie.
It's a little bit of a flex by Josh Chernoff there.
Well, I was gonna say those colors remind me of the old Starcade logo, but I guess it makes sense. But folks, this week, not WrestleMania, Money in the Bank is this weekend. We've got the remainder of the draft on Wednesday and Friday. Of course, you can tune in on Fight TV. So says Chernoff. When's the next new episode, Josh?
Next episode will be, I think I want to say the 14th, maybe is when that's coming out. Whatever the Thursday or Friday is of that week, will be a new So Says Chernoff. And we also have Mind of the Meanie. The Mind of the Meanie podcast drops every Monday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern time. So you'll be able to check it out at 6 a.m. Eastern now, Damien. And this past week, it just came out today. Mind of the Meanie was the title of it is Chumbawamba. It was another excellent show. What's that?
Did they get knocked out?
We got up again. Yeah. But no, the Blue Meanie just continues to deliver every single week. It is a blast, and I hope you guys will check it out, Mind of the Meanie, and enjoy it.
Absolutely. And of course, you can also check out the podcast from not only the Mind of the Meanie podcast, but also Jason Solomon, with several episodes dropping each and every week. What should we be looking forward to this week, Jason?
Oh, well, obviously a lot of Money in the Bank talk. Also Dark Side of the Ring, which I've been a big fan of this season. So I believe this week it is Herb Abrams in the UWF. So I'm sure that'll be an interesting story too. Yes, I think it's called Cocaine and Cowboy Boots, the Herb Abrams story. So that'll be Salamaster Sounds Off, episode 651 on Sunday.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to Andrew Baydala. Thank you to Jason Solomon. Thank you to the man they call Meathead. And also thank you to Josh Chernoff for joining us here on PWR Primetime Live on Monday. Raw started 1 minute, 10 seconds ago. I apologize for keeping you from it, Andrew, because I think you, in order of who's actually watching Raw tonight, is probably Andrew for sure. And then I would say Jason's watching because he has to, because he's working. Meathead certainly isn't. Dave, you haven't watched Raw in 4 years. And Josh is still going to be drinking all night, so he's going to miss all of Raw.
I only watch when Zelina Vega's on, which is now half the show anyhow. So.
Well, folks,
she's
thank you
been
so
on
much.
Quite a bit. She's been on quite a bit recently, actually.
Yeah,
Thank you so
she's
much
still
for
doing
doing
Raw
Raw
right now.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give you the opportunity to tune into Raw. We will see you back here again Wednesday night on Fight TV. That's FITE, Fight Wednesday night, when we bring you the second episode of the annual Pro Wrestling Report Fantasy Draft, won by Damian Nelson. For all of us, thank you very much for tuning in, especially for that one. How do I point to you? There it is. I got to point forward. Yeah, whatever.
Well,
thanks for joining us. We'll see you Wednesday for the next edition of the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time. So long, everyone.